What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to bring you the top 5 decks to play in Hearthstone for Season 23. Alright, we're going to jump straight into this. I'm not going to waste any time, not going to waste your time. I'm going to try to make this a decently quick video so you guys can get to Legend. Alright, so number 5. Number 5 is going to be the Shadow Priest. Generally, most people consider this deck not very good, or, shadow form not to be very good in general, but it does have a lot of things in the meta. There's a lot of, Face Hunter and Zulok going around right now, so this is actually pretty strong against both of those decks, because you have Shadow Word Pain, Unstable Ghoul, and your shadow form itself. Once you get shadow form out, they can't keep anything on the board. Plus you've got tons of board clear. Alright, so I'm going to kind of explain how you play the deck somewhat and what cards are in the deck. So I went with 2 Shadow Word Pain because there is so much aggro going around right now. 1 Museum Curator. Generally most shadow decks don't run any of this guy, but I like him, for the late game to get a big guy or another taunt. 2 Unstable Ghoul. Deals with aggro pretty damn well. Shadow Word Death. Deals with big minions. Nothing more to say there. Of course, Shadow Form, the whole basis of the deck. 2 Acolyte of Pain, which is pretty much your only draw engine, because you don't want to run, the healing combos, because you're not going to be healing anything. You have Shadow Form. 2 Death Lord. Nothing more to explain there. He's extremely strong. And by the time they kill him, usually you have an answer for whatever he puts on the board. 2 Sinjin Shield Master. Tournament Medic. 2 of those. That's going to be your late game heal for when you use your Shadow Power. You're going to be healing yourself at the same time. 2 Excavated Evil for board clear. 1 Holy Nova. 2 Anti-Keelbot. Since we don't have our hero power to heal us, we need outside resources to do so. 2 Sludge Belcher. 2 Entomb to deal with big minions and have more threats yourself. 1 Holy Fire, because it deals a flat 5 damage and restores 5 health. 2 Light Bomb, because it's pretty much the best board clear in the game. 1 Cabal Shadow Priest. And 1 Kodo Rider. Now, for these decks, I'm going to let you guys know that if you need help with these decks on figuring out what cards you can replace if you don't have a specific card, I will definitely comment back and let you know my thoughts on that. Alright, number 4. For number 4, I chose Demon Lock. Demon Lock's not been seeing a lot of play lately, but I think it could be good in Season 23 because of all the aggro going around, and it's generally pretty good in the mirror match against Zulok, because it's just an upgraded version of Zu that gives you more late game and harder threats to deal with. So for my Demon Lock list, I chose 2 Power Overwhelming, 2 Abusive 2 Abusive Sergeant, 2 Flame Imp, 2 Void Hawker, 2 Dark Peddler, 2 Haunted Creeper, 1 Iron Beak Owl. A lot of people don't include Owl in their lists for some reason, and this card is just way too good to exclude from almost any list, if you ask me. 2 Knife Juggler, 2 Nerubian Egg, 2 Imp Gang Boss, probably one of the best 3-drops in the game, 1 Void Terror, 2 Implosion, 2 Defender of Argus, 2 Void Caller, 2 Doomguard, 1 Dr. Boom, and 1 Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis is actually what makes this deck pretty good, because he gives your guy immune, and in Zulok they don't have a huge amount of ways to deal with him, and if they are dealing with him, they're throwing a big guy and probably a power overwhelming into him, so that kind of deals with a threat all on its own. Then again, you could just die before you play Mal'Ganis, but you're playing pretty much the same deck as them, except for, you know, adding the Dr. Boom, Mal'Ganis, and Voidcaller. So you actually have a decent matchup against them, and then once you go into late game, because you're trading so much in the board, they don't have anything big. You have ridiculously big things to play against them. Alright, going into the next deck. Number 3. Mechanical Mage. Or Mech Mage for short, whatever. This deck actually lost a lot of popularity, but last season I played it and gained about 5 or 6 ranks playing only this deck, because the tempo for mechs is just pretty insane. Now, that being said, if you get your board cleared, you don't have you don't have really any ways to draw cards except for Gorilla Bot, and you're probably going to lose. So you have to be very careful against, you know, depending on who you're playing, what class you're playing against, you have to be very careful about just running all your mechs out. If you're playing against control, you really only want to have 2 to 3 mechs out at a time. If you're playing against aggro, you can pretty much just run them out, and then you're going to out-tempo any other aggro majority of the time. The only problem I've seen with this deck is running into bad hands where you get a bunch of 4-drops or high drops and none of the lower drops. But the curve is very, very good in this deck, and it's very, very consistent. I think for every 5 games I played, I lost maybe 1, if that, which is actually a pretty good ratio. So here's my list. I run 2 Clockwork Gnome. Most mech lists only run 1 of him, but he's actually really good because he synergizes with Mana Worm pretty well, and you know, he turns on Coghammer if you play Coghammer turn 1, play him turn 2. So having those early drops is actually very good. 2 Coghammer, 2 Mana Worm, 2 Frostbolt, 2 Unstable Portal, 2 Annoyatron, 2 Mech Warper, 2 Snow Chugger, 2 Spider Tank, 1 Tinkertown Technician. I didn't want to have 2 just because the mech synergy, you want to have mechs on the board, and Goblin Blast Mage already is pretty greedy with that, and so is Gorilla and Clockwork Knight. So I only wanted to run 1 of this guy, and when I do see him, it's fine. Sometimes it's meh. 2 Firewall, 2 Goblin Blast Mage, which is the card that pretty much makes this deck playable. 2 Gorilla Bot. This card pumps you in the late game. It gives you some ridiculous cards sometimes. I've gotten Sneed's Old Shredders, the one legendary that gives you Lepernones. I can't remember what the hell his name is right now. Anyway, run 2 Piloted Shredder, of course, 1 Clockwork Knight. I'm not sure how much I like this guy. He's won me games and he's lost me games, so he may end up coming out at some point. We got 1 Piloted Sky Golem and Dr. Boom, of course, because he's in every deck pretty much. Almost every deck that I'm going to show you, actually. Going to number 2. Number 2 is going to be the Midrange Druid. For some reason it wasn't wanting to let me click on it. But anyway, Midrange Druid is probably the best deck right now, and I have my reasonings on putting it at number 2, mostly because you don't want to be a fucking faggot and play the same deck that everybody is playing to win, and it's generally just not satisfying to win with because it's so easy. I mean, I had a guy played against me yesterday. He went turn to innervate into Emperor Thracian. That's not fun. Not at all. Anyway, I do have the deck built just in case I want to be a douchebag and play it. So for my list, I'm running 2 Innervate, 2 Living Roots, 2 Wild Growth, 2 Wrath, 2 Savage Roar, 1 Big Game Hunter, 2 Shade, 2 Swipe, 2 Keeper, 2 Piloted Shredder, 2 Azure Drake, 2 Druid of Claw, 1 Lothep, 2 Force of Nature, 1 Emperor Thrathian, 2 Ancient Lore, and Dr. Boom, of course, because he's in every fucking deck. Alright, we're going on to the number 1 choice for Season 23. Dun dun dun. Alright, so my number 1 choice for Season 23 is going to be this new list, the Reno Secret Paladin. Now, you're probably asking me, why would I run Reno Secrets when I can run regular Secrets and get more consistency? Well, audience, I will tell you why. The reasoning behind this is because you have more tools than the regular Secret deck does. Now, you also see that there are 2 ofs in this deck. However, that is not an issue. You have Mysterious Challenger. Now, the fact that this makes Reno somewhat situational is kind of minimal, because you have so many tools to control the game until you've at least played 1 Mysterious Challenger and gotten out 1 of your Avenges and Noble Sacrifices out of your deck. I've played this deck, and it absolutely destroys the mirror match. It is pretty good against Druid. I'm not going to say extremely good, but it absolutely dominates any kind of aggro. If you know that you're playing against aggro, say you're playing Hunter, you know there's only 2 Hunter decks. There's only midrange and aggro. So you know that if you have Reno in your opening hand, just keep him. As long as you make it to turn probably 7, you're probably gonna win. Now, what makes this different from the regular Secret deck? Well, you run Zombie Chow. That gives you an edge against aggro and an edge in the mirror match. You run Acidic Swamp Ooze. That gives you an edge in the mirror match. That gives you an edge against Face Shaman. That gives you an edge against Warrior. It helps you a lot. You run Argent Protector. Gives you an edge against aggro. And it gives you that extra Divine Shield when you need it, which can actually be very helpful. You run Iron Beak Isle. Again, that's more utility. It is going to help you quite a bit. You also run Divine Favor, which gives you more draw for the late game, which is better against the control decks such as Priest and Warrior. They're drawing a lot of cards, not doing a whole lot on the board, so you throw out the, you just keep pumping out cards onto the board. They keep holding their cards, and then you refill your hand. You also run both Alador Peacekeeper and Keeper of Oldemon. Utility. That's the basis of this deck. The utility of this deck is very, very good. But you run pretty much the basics of a normal Secret deck, but you get a little bit more utility. You get Reno Jackson, which is, in my opinion, a fucking ridiculously broken card. But this is the deck that I'm going to play to hopefully reach Legend this season. Last season was, my first actual try at reaching Legend. I didn't really have the time, and I made it to rank 4 with maybe 3 or 4 stars. I probably could have pushed for Legend, but the season was ending by the time that I got to rank 4 or whatever, so I was like, fuck it, I'll go to Legend next season. Anyway, I'm gonna do some honorable mentions. We've got Freeze Mage, of course. I'm not gonna go through the whole deck, but Freeze Mage is still pretty decent. Has bad matchups though. You got Reno Warlock. Still probably one of the most ridiculous decks. I still have a lot of fun playing this deck. You got Basic Control Priest. Rogue is not something I would really recommend playing right now in this meta. It's not doing very well right now. Face Shaman is probably my most honorable mention. If you want a cheap deck and you want to push for Legend fairly easily, play Face Shaman. If you're kind of sitting on a budget, play Face Shaman. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, comment below. Subscribe. I'm going to be uploading a hell of a lot more Hearthstone content. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.